Hello, welcome back to the Fike Video Training Library, a training library of short tutorial videos that we try to use to help you understand a single task, skill, or possibly to teach you tricks or tips or shortcuts in getting a job done. Today's lesson we're going to discuss installing the driver for the USB cable that needed to communicate to the CyberCat 50 and SheetXI 50 control panels. As you know, the CyberCat and SheetXI systems are truly intelligent, addressable, state-of-the-art, configurable systems. There's a configuration stored in the panel as well as in each addressable device out on the system. This is a true peer-to-peer communication or protocol system where the devices talk both to the panel and to each other. With the configurability that we have is where you get the flexibility to make the system operate in precisely the manner that you need for it to. With that all being said, then it's pretty important to understand that the first step in an addressable, configurable system is being able to get that configuration into the system, or else it's never going to work like you want it to. That is done with our Linx software. Linx is a software developed by Fike where you can configure the system. We're going to use that to communicate with the panel to send the configuration to the panel. We can upload the configuration from the panel back onto your PC, or several different diagnostics you can run. It's a valuable tool, but the tool itself does you little good if you cannot connect and communicate with the panel using the proper cable, driver, and selection of what COM port is what sets it up and makes Linx able to communicate. The bigger CyberCats and SheetXI panels use a serial connection with an RJ11 connector that plugs in on the board. On the 50-point panels, we use a USB port instead of that serial connection. The USB port's what's used for communication, but before we can have a link of communication established, the proper driver must be installed. The cable itself you see in this picture is a standard USB/A to USB/B male-to-male cable, just like the one used on almost any new printer, scanner, cameras, etc. that you buy today. Even though it's a standard cable, it's going to connect to a UART, or a processor that is on our 50-point panels, and that processor needs a certain protocol. Therefore, we load a driver onto our computer for this thing to talk to our panels correctly. On the 50-point panels, the USB connector from our computer is going to plug into the USB port that's located on the board as seen here. It's on the back side, and the cable will come straight in from the top. So let's get started installing this. How can I install this driver? I'm going to escape back. There's my desktop, and I'm going to go into Internet Explorer. You want to go up here and you want to click www.fike.com, come to their main page. You want to come over here on Tools, over to the right, select Tools. Underneath that, then there's one that says Technical Support. This is the way you get to the Fike Forums website that you'll hear us keep talking about. What is the Fike Forums website? Well, hopefully that's where you downloaded your Linx software to begin with, so you're already familiar with it. Type in my username and password and click on Log. Momentarily, it will redirect you to the Fike Forums website that I hope you're familiar with. From this site, you'll see technical literature right in the top middle. So I'm going to scroll down here. And there you see my software downloads and toolboxes. Software downloads, I'm going to click on Fike Software and Pricing Toolboxes. It's going to direct me to another page where I will now scroll down again, and you see my options here. There's your Linx full installer for the version 3.1.2. License generator, as you know, anything newer than 3.1 on the Linx software requires a license to operate correctly. And then right below that is my USB drivers. I will point out before I start loading the driver that right underneath these two options you have a USB driver installation guide that you could click on, open a PDF document with screenshots and all instructions that we're going to cover in this video. So I'm going to select Windows XP USB driver. Going to open up a file that says, do you want to run or save this file? If you save it, you're going to have to run it later. So I'm going to go ahead and run it from here. Since it is an executable file, in most cases, most computers are going to try to block it and make you verify that you really want to run that, which I will. Starts up. The Silicon Labs is the maker of the UART, the processor that we use on our panel. So we're into the wizard for installing software. Welcome to the install shield. This is what I want to do, so let's click on next. Like any software, it's going to ask you to accept the terms of the agreement. No charge here, it's just an agreement. Then it's going to ask you to choose a destination folder. You could come over here and change this, but I'm going to highly recommend that you leave it just where it's at. We're installing the driver on the computer. The installer's being installed, or the driver is being installed, excuse me, but I'm not connected to the panel yet. It is imperative that I not be connected between my PC and the 50-point panel. So we're going to install it, but we need that later when we do connect to be able to point to it and tell it, okay, for this piece of apparatus, load this driver. If you change this, you're on your own trying to find it. So I'm going to come down here. That's how I'm going to leave it the same. So I'm going to click on next, and it says you're ready to install the program. I'll click on install, and the process begins. All right, installation is complete. I'll click on finish, and the installation of the driver onto my computer, that portion is now complete. That's the first part. The next part has to do with getting it set up for that cable like we talked about before. So I'm going to escape back, close that installation, told it okay. Now I'm back to my main page. I'm going to reach over here and I'm going to plug my USB cable in that's plugged into my computer into the 50-point panel. Boom. You notice down at the bottom, hope it didn't cut it off on you, but there's a balloon that says found new hardware. Once that finds that, Windows should open up this new found new hardware wizard. This is what we need. Since we know where the software is at and we know what this is that we're connected to and what driver we want to associate to it, by default it says automatically, and we don't want that. We want to come down here and click on install from a list of specific location because we're going to tell it where to go. So we're going to go to next. This comes to, since we told it we want to select from a specific location, we need to tell it that location. So we're going to make sure that it searched for the best drivers and not here. You don't want this checked. Search for the best drivers. We want a checkbox right here for sure, and we're going to tell it where it's at. How do we tell it that? We're going to click on the Browse button to go find it. Once you click on the Browse, it's going to show all the folders within your computer. Files, whether it's E drive or your CD drive, jump drive, whatever you've got. Where we saved it is on our C drive. Let me make this screen a little bit bigger. Is I okay on this to blow this up so you can get a better screen? There we go. Now you can get a little better picture of it. So here's my local disk, C. I want to select that. Underneath C, it shows all the folders. Where we installed this at before was under C, Scilabs. This is the Silicon Labs, so we want to come down and click on Scilabs. Underneath Scilabs, there is a folder called MCU. Underneath that, one more folder called CP210X is what we want to select. Then there's a folder called Windows 2K XP. Select that and click OK. It will bring that information back. Then you click on Browse, went to the screen, had your selection, you found what you wanted, clicked OK, and it brings that back here for you. So next, this is why I was telling you not to move it, not to save it somewhere different where I couldn't help you find it. Click on Next. Then it's completing the Found New Hardware wizard, which is installing the software for that new hardware that it found. We told it where to find that driver. So if I click on OK, we are done to this point. We have installed the driver on our computer. We have hooked up the new hardware, which is our 50-point panel, the UART on it, and we have now told the computer that when it sees this piece of hardware, use the driver that we installed earlier, and you'll be good for communication with that UART. one more step we need to do, and that is to now associate that cable, that communication port in Linx. Linx is what we're going to use to talk to the panel, so if we don't tell Linx what this piece of hardware is we just installed, it will not work properly. If you have a shortcut for this, feel free to go that way, but this is, if I go down and click on Start, Settings, Control Panel, this is going to take me to a screen where I can recognize this port or identify this port. I'm going to double click on System. You open up this screen. Once you're in the System Properties screen, I want you to click on the Hardware tab. On the Hardware tab, we're looking for a button that says Device Manager. Click on that, and it takes me to a view of all the associated devices on my computer. To use this in Linx, we're using communication port. So all I'm interested in out of all this, we want to see what COM port it is. So I'm going to click on this plus to the left of ports. That will open up and show all the COM ports that you have on your computer. Now you see my CP210X USB to UART bridge controller is set up for COM3. That's what I need. This tells me a different thing. Number one, I have to know the COM port so that I can tell Linx what COM port to communicate to this 50-point panel. But this also tells me, since it's showing up under ports, that the driver was installed properly. So there's my COM3. That's all I need to know, so I can start closing these windows, close my device manager, close my system properties. I'm going to close the control panel, and I'm going to close Internet Explorer. We're going to start up Linx. Linx is always the black C. It's going to come up momentarily and show you your configuration level, what version level, and how many days you have left on your license. We're using a USB to talk to a 50-point panel, so I'm going to go ahead and select a 50-point panel, even though I can go exit the main menu. I'm going to select the CyberCat 50, and you'll see this is my Project Explorer. Now we know our hardware is set up, so we're just telling Linx where to find it. I'm going to go up and click on File, Preferences. Once I click on Preferences, it opens up this screen. You want to go to the Communication tab. Once you go to the Communication tab, you're going to see 3 different possible ports that can be set up. Your serial direct coming from a DB9 to the CyberCat 254, 1016, or XI RJ11 connector. USB to serial is if you use a USB to DB9 converter, since you don't have a DB9 connection on your computer. And the USB direct is what we're going to use for the USB to USB. In this case, it's saying COM4, and we found out in our system properties that it's COM3, so I'm going to hit this down arrow, change that to COM3. Now we're set up. Click on OK. The only thing left in Linx is to now tell it which of those 3 ports. Since Linx gives you the opportunity to set up all 3 different types of connections at the same time, we have to have the ability down to select that COM port. So I'm going to have you go back up now and click on File. Only this time click on Communication, and you'll see your 3 options. USB direct is the one that we're going to use. USB to the 50-point panel. USB to serial converter, that's if you go from USB on your computer through a DB9 converter over to the RJ11 on the bigger panel. And serial direct is if you don't have to use a converter and you're going straight DB9 to the RJ11. But in our case, again, we want to use the USB direct. I'm going to go up and click on USB, and now I'm going to click on it to select it. It disappears, but just to show you what we've done, I'm going to go back up and click on File, Communication. You're going to see now the check mark is next to the USB direct, so that is selected. Now when I try to connect with Linx, it's going to use the COM port I've selected with my USB to USB. I'll go to View. This is your final step. View, Panel Explorer. When I click on that, it's going to open Panel Explorer, and it's going to communicate out the port that I selected up here. And as long as you see your panel show up on your Panel Explorer, that is guaranteeing you that you connected, it recognizes it, and you're set up to communicate on that port. Now you can do whatever you need to do in Linx. Very simple process, but there are kind of three different parts from it. You install the driver without being connected to the panel. Once you have it installed, you connect to the panel and you set up your hardware wizard. Then in Linx, you set up which COM port it is and select that COM port. Then as soon as you open the Panel Explorer, boom. That's the most simple communication and confirmation that your COM port's set up and that your PC is now communicating, connecting to those panels. That's all there is to installing the USB driver. It takes longer to explain it, obviously, than it does to go through it. So it's a very simple process. Just remember the three basic steps. Download the driver from our Fike forum site. Install the driver on your computer without being connected to the panel. Then connect to the panel. Associate that driver with the new hardware that you've got. Then go to Linx, set up your COM port. You're good to go. We hope you enjoyed this video, or hope this video is helpful. I recommend you go to the training library assortment and choose other videos that could be beneficial to you. And we thank you for using Fike. We hope that you have a great day.